let me sort of formally introduce you now to Interteaching. Interteaching was, I can't say discovered, was developed by a fellow by the name of Phil Heinlein. And this guy right here. He's a psychologist. And he believes in the principle of reinforcement. And that is that behavior is going to become more frequent when it's rewarded. So things that produce rewards, we will engage in more often. He wanted to develop a system of teaching in which students were rewarded for their activities. And so this is how he came up with Interteaching. There's built-in reinforcers or rewards at every stage of this. Okay. So it's not just about points, it's about enjoying the experience.
There is a question here. How can you reward every student or reinforce him if you have a big number of students? How can you give positive feedback for every student? And we have a limited time.
Well, let's take a look at that. The question is how can you provide rewards for every student when you have limited time? Well,
positive feedbacks.
Yeah.
We should give them feedbacks for their work.
Well, remember now, you're not doing all the work in the class. You're having your students share a lot of that burden with you. So a lot of the reinforcement comes when they break into groups. And what happens is they compare answers. They get feedback from each other. If they have something they've got a little bit wrong, what do? They talk about it and they figure out, okay, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? So they're getting feedback almost at every turn. When you are going around as a teacher like I did and talking to students, you know, I can say, hey, good job, you got it. You know, I've got many more opportunities to reinforce good student behavior in Interteaching than I do any other way. It's not just about what happens on the examinations. It's about what happens every day in class. I am increasing the amount of interaction that students have with me every class period because I'm roaming around class. I have eye contact. I meet with everybody. I talk with everybody. Everybody sees me. Everybody has that opportunity. They're no longer afraid of me as the big bad teacher. Why? Because I'm at their level now. I'm ranging with them. So reinforcement for student behavior occurs every day in that classroom. Every single day. Every single day. Good question. So Phil Heinlein wrote about Interteaching, but it was a conceptual idea. This fellow right here, Brian Seville, who's at James Madison University in Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and a former PhD student of mine, I might add, is the guy who's developed all the research testing Interteaching. So he's the one who really has made Interteaching what it is through his research. He's a very science-minded guy. So let's talk about what's involved, the basic components of Interteaching. The assigned reading or the textbook, whatever it is you would normally use. Interteaching does not require you to do something special with the textbook or your assigned readings. You can still use the textbooks or the assigned readings you've always used. Always. Now, if you change textbooks or if you subtract an assigned reading or add an assigned reading, you're going to have to change your prep guides a little bit. But that's okay. You know, we all have to update our courses. You already know a little bit about the prep guides. What they are is a series of individual questions, rigorous questions, aimed at getting into the very heart or meat of whatever it is that you've assigned them to read, textbook or assigned readings. What I did when I developed my course, I sat down in the summer and I wrote out every prep guide for every chapter. I went through every chapter. I had 14 chapters in the book I used, and a week before class started, I uploaded all those prep guides to my classroom management system. So they're right there from the beginning. Okay? So I didn't have to do any work during the semester writing new prep guides. Okay? I did have to write a lot of new tests, but that's okay. I'm one of those weird guys. I love making tests. I absolutely adore testing. I like to make them fun. I know that sounds contradictory, but tests can be fun. And I like to make them really, really hard. But what have I done in class? I prepared them to rise to that challenge, because I've reinforced behavior that is going to lead to their success. And in a little bit, I'm going to take you through the handout and show you some of the things I prepared, and you get an idea what I'm talking about. We know that after they do the prep guides, there's going to be small group discussion. Now, what I haven't told you about was something we didn't do. Every pair of students turns in what's called an interteaching record that has their name on it. So if you two were a pair, I would give you a blank sheet of paper, you'd put your names on it, and you would write me a note about anything that was really complicated or difficult or crazy to understand. So that in addition to the discussion, if I miss something, I've got this feedback as well. Okay? And so I can take those home, I can look them over, and I can look for common themes in these interteaching records. And if everybody seems to be messing up on a particular concept, I know I need to spend time with a clarifying lecture at the beginning of the next class period. Okay? And I follow that up with the clarifying lecture. This is what class is like. I'm no longer lecturing for 50 minutes. Do you know in my class I haven't used a PowerPoint in 4 years? I never used a PowerPoint for it. There's no need to. Why? Because the students were doing all the work. Who's supposed to do the work in teaching and learning? The student, not us. Our job is to arrange the environment that will produce maximal amounts of engagement on their part, and therefore maximal amount of learning on their part. I'm putting it on them. It's their job, not mine to learn. I provide the opportunity. Okay? Think about that. What we are dispensers of opportunities for our students. Those of you who straight lecture, you're working too hard. You're working way too hard. Okay? There's no need to work that hard. You're talking about things that students already know. Don't waste your time talking about what they know. Talk about what they don't know. Okay? That's the clarifying lecture.
So how do you discuss this with students? The short clarifying lectures. How is it done usually?
The clarifying lecture?
Yes. Not PowerPoint.
Okay, so a clarifying lecture can be done a couple of different ways. What I did in my class, I did not use the interteaching record the third and fourth years. I used them the first 2 years. Because after the first 2 years, like I said earlier, I knew where all the problems were. I knew what they weren't going to understand. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure that out. So what I did was I would listen to what they were talking about. Sometimes I would talk about them individually. So if you two ladies were having problems with a concept, I might speak to you directly about those concepts. And if I hear the same concepts having difficulty with other groups, I would then say, okay, there's a problem here. I need to come back to the class and let's talk about the class. And what I might do is I might say, okay, there was a difficulty understanding what Palmer meant by identity and integrity of the teacher. Why don't you share with the class your views on that? Okay? So I'm not telling them now. I'm letting what you just learned come forth to benefit everybody else. Okay? And what am I doing? I'm rewarding you for posing a question about something you didn't understand. And now you have the opportunity to get up before everybody else and say, here's what this means. So that's highly rewarding. And it makes you feel good. You know, it really makes you feel good. It builds that confidence that we were talking about earlier. So the clarifying lecture usually lasts no more than about 15 to 20 minutes, depending upon the topic. And it's aimed only at what students didn't understand as per your revolving around class, listening to their discussions, and what you read on the interteaching records. A lot of times what I would do is I would have class begin by the discussions with the prep guides, And then based on what I heard and what I knew they probably didn't understand, I would spend the last 15 minutes of class lecturing without any notes. Okay. So I don't have to prepare notes for class. Okay. I might bring some interteaching records on and actually read the questions that students were asking, but I don't need to prepare a lecture. I'm the professor. I should know this stuff right here. I shouldn't have to rely on a set of notes or a PowerPoint, ever. Okay? Think about what a PowerPoint is. Is this really for the student or is it for you? Most of the time it's for us. What is it? It's memoranda. It's to jog our memories, okay, of what we're supposed to say and when we're supposed to say it. Okay? That's all a PowerPoint really is. It's no different than the old yellow notes that my professors used to use before there was technology like that, okay? So, did that answer your question okay? Yes. Okay, thank you. So that's basically it. That's basically what interteaching focuses on. Let's go into depth a little bit more on some of these things. Oh, what we talked about earlier. Your testing doesn't have to change. Oh, well, actually, you might want to change it because now that you're teaching at a higher level and you're expecting more of your students, you can make your exams harder. You can make them more challenging. You can really make those kids suffer, okay? And that's a good thing when they have to struggle like that. They know it's coming. And after they take that first test and they get a good whiff of what it was like, they know you're going to mean business, and they're going to really rise to the occasion. I've always found that students only rise to the level that their teachers expect them to. And most of us set a low bar here. Set it here. Set it here. If you set the higher bar, teaching becomes more fun for you. Why? Because now you can talk at a higher level. You can reason at a higher level. You can bring in introduce concepts that otherwise you wouldn't, because they're prepared for class because of the prep guides. I use them as homework. Students knew what we were covering, when we were covering, not only because of syllabus, but because every Sunday night I would sit down and I would write my class an email discussing what the agenda was for the week. Remind them of things. So I would say on Tuesday, prep guide for chapter 12 is due. Make sure you have it done by the beginning of the class. On Thursday, the prep guide for chapter 13 is due. Okay. The following Tuesday, we're going to have a full period examination, 75 minutes. So there was no doubt. And what I found is that if I took the time to remind them of these things, they fell in love with me. They appreciated the fact that their teacher was taking the time to talk to them. And sometimes I would say other things to them in the emails. I would remind them of other things. Or I might share with them an experience I had with a student that was particularly interesting or insightful. Sometimes I would just write a note to them telling them how much I appreciate how active they are in class, how much I appreciate their contributions. Little things like that take almost no time for us, but they produce big benefits in how students react to us. It helps establish rapport. Like I told you, I put all mine on the web before school begins. So they're all done. I never have to worry about it. You can make the prep guides worth class credit if you want to. I did. I assigned 5 points to each one, and it really is. It's either completed or it's not completed. Okay? I wasn't worried about the content because I knew they were going to get the content from that discussion from each other. Early in the semester, you know, students are like your children. They're going to test you. When you give them a rule, they're going to say, does mom or dad really mean that? Would they really do that? Would they really cut off my arm if I take a cookie? Okay, those kinds of things. You know, that's why you never want to tell your kids that, you know, if they take a cookie, you're going to cut off their fingers. Okay? Because they know you're not going to do it. But if you tell them that they're going to lose TV time or screen time on their iPad or iPhone, then they're going to test it. And they're going to see what they can get away with. Okay? Students are just like that. Okay? Students are just like that. So I had students come in with incomplete prep guides the first week of class, but never after that. As you saw, a prep guide is our key questions to what the reading was about. I tried to emphasize facts where applicable, but really I wanted to get relationships. I wanted to get ideas. I wanted to get synthesis of ideas. I wanted to get evaluation. I wanted to get all those higher order Bloom things. It works best when you have pairs. Anybody know why? Why would class discussion work better when you have pairs? Yeah, instead of having 3 or 4 or 5.
Because make sure that all bad will be...
Exactly right. Nobody can be lazy.
Yes.
You know, if I've got 3 guys sitting right here, these guys are carrying all the workload, you're not. Okay? So you're losing out. Even though you're sitting back and really enjoying it, you're losing out because you're missing that interaction. Yes. But when you have 2, man, that's where it is. That's where it is, right there. Okay. Your job is to simply hang out with your students. What could be more fun in a classroom than hanging out with your students talking about a subject you're passionate about? So you saw how I went around. I went around to every group. I listened in. If a group seemed okay, I went by. Some of the groups I said, how you doing? Are you getting everything okay? Okay. Same thing with the ladies. Made contact with everybody. Everybody has an opportunity to contact with me. And I try in a class period to make eye contact with everybody in the classroom. Everybody. So the Interteaching records is just what they say. It simply has their names of the student pairs. So I know who they are, and I'm going to tell you why that's important in just a second. It identifies difficult questions, problems, etc. And this is where I get the bulk of the information early on in the semester where the problems are. And like I said, the 3rd and 4th years I taught using this process, I never went there. I never went there. In the true version of Interteaching, there are what are called quality points. Okay. I don't like those, but I'm going to tell them about you anyway. Quality points, let's suppose the 2 of you are a pair and the 2 of you are a pair. Okay. And I take a question from the prep guide, modify it a little bit. Okay. And let's say the question is worth 5 points. And you get a 4 on it. And you get a 3 on it. Okay? So let me do it this way. You get a 4, you get a 5, you get a 4, you get a 3. Sorry about that. Okay, I apologize. You know, you're just not very bright. What can I say? You know, I know. It's a tough life. I got it.
It's a lucky number.
So what happens is, if they get a 4 or above between them as an average, they're going to be rewarded with extra credit points on the examination. But you guys are not, because you did well, but you didn't do quite so well. And what that does, I think, is sort of punishes you and makes you feel bad, and word's going to get out about you. And so you sort of become a little bit ostracized or secluded in the class. But under a true Interteaching, that's what they use. It's meant to sort of reinforce, working hard together. Working hard together. So we've really hit clarifying lectures quite a bit, so I'm going to skip this page. This is a summary of the research on Interteaching. With Interteaching, like it is with problem-based learning, team-based learning, just-in-time teaching, all the different methods of active learning, it's always compared to the lecture. The lecture is always the devil in higher education research when it comes to teaching methodology. Okay? So compared to the lecture, and there's probably been 35 or 40 interteaching studies done now, and there's one included in the handout. We find students do better at content knowledge. Students have better retention. So you give them a test at point A, you give them a test 6 weeks later, okay, they still remember most of it as opposed to a lecture. They develop a better conceptual understanding. Why? Because the questions you're asking them, not only on the prep guide but on the exams, is at a higher level. Practical knowledge, that is how you can apply that knowledge to situations, is increased. Student engagement. This is my favorite part. I love to see a busy classroom, an engaged classroom. Problem solving skills. Okay? Problem solving skills. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Student motivation. Here's the key. If student engagement goes up, student motivation goes up. Always. Positive attitude toward learning. Positive attitude toward class. Positive attitude toward you. Okay? Why? Because they're learning more than they ever have in their lives as far as college is concerned. They're getting it. They're getting it because you arranged the learning situation. Sir?
Could we summarize the interteaching into when we make our students think together, bear, and share? Is this could we consider this interteaching? When we make our students.
I think if you involve these components, absolutely. I mean, the think, pair, share part is there because they're having that discussion. They've thought about it. They've thought about it through the reading and through the answering the questions. Then you've paired them, and then they're sharing, and they're doing more than share. They're actually teaching each other. They're correcting each other.
I believe that interteaching differs according to the nature of the learner. What I mean is the nature of the students here could differ from the Western students there. If you give a text as a prep guide for our students, it's just like you threw him in an ocean. You should guide him. You should give him a background first before the small group work and before going to think, pair, and share. We should explain through our passionate nature, through using our heart. We should make it simple for him. We should consider here the nature of the students, of the learner himself.
I agree partially with you. As I said to the gentleman who had to leave to go to a doctor's appointment, who's sitting right over there, this levels the playing field because the expectations are risen for all the students in the class, regardless of their background. And it puts them in the same learning situation. It actually forces them to do the reading, to answer the prep guides, otherwise they don't survive the class. Okay? And like I told you earlier, when you have students who have never experienced this before, they're going to hate you for it until it takes hold of them. And most of the students, although they may not fall in love with it, are going to understand it and appreciate it because for the first time, they're able to do the work because somebody is holding their feet to the fire. So I agree with you in the sense that there is a lot of different types of learners out there, different backgrounds. And I do agree with you about the role of the teacher. And that's what that quote was all about, the identity and integrity of the teacher. If we take this method of interteaching and we're a blah blah, we are not passionate, we are not excited, we are not caring, we are not respectful, then the method will fail. But any other method would fail as well. Okay? So you're absolutely 100% correct there. Absolutely. Another benefit is the ability to analyze and evaluate information. Higher order Bloom's thinking. They're better at generating solutions to problems that are novel. Self-regulated learning. Does anybody know what self-regulated learning means? What does it mean?
It actually has many components, which basically has to do with the student controlling their time, controlling their emotions, taking responsibility over their learning. There is a lot of autonomous learning. So it's, I think it's a very interesting concept, and I think it's our role to enhance it in our teaching.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Because it's the way for them to be really lifelong learners.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Just to repeat, so everybody heard it, self-regulated learning is the ability of a student to take control of his own destiny, of her own time, so that they learn to when to study, how much to study, what they need to study. They become, this is a very, very popular research topic in the West right now, is that what can we do to help students manage their time as students? And we find that one of the skills that students learn as a result of going through an interteaching experience is become more self-regulated.
And it's also an integral part of self-efficacy.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, now self-efficacy has a lot to do with self-regulation.
Yeah, it's very critical in that sense, absolutely. Self-confidence. We talked about self-confidence earlier. How important it is. I mean, think about it. You've been a C student in every other class. You go into a class like Interteaching, and suddenly you're getting B's. What does that do for your head? I mean, it really, really helps you become more confident in what you're doing. I've had students tell me, I didn't think I could do this. I never thought I would be able to learn statistics. But they do. And not only that, but they get turned on by it. You know, I'll have a student say, you know I'm not going to do well in this class. I hate statistics. I'm not good at math. Yada, yada, yada. And then especially they said, I just can't believe I did so well in this course. I'm going to take another statistics course. What? Why would you do that? Because now they know that they can do it. Their writing skills become better. Their oral skills become better. And I love the idea that they enjoy learning. I want to take students who don't care about college, and I want to get them to care about college. Because if I get them to care about college, I get them to care about being learners for the rest of their life. I want them to become readers and thinkers and studiers. And that's what a good course does.